Okay, we'll get started today. Our main topic today is going to be Windows 10, 11, and 12. If you're having trouble seeing the presentation or the audio, put in the chat and let us know. Otherwise, we'll assume that everybody's okay. If you're online, you can mute your audio and turn off your video until the question and answer at the end. You can use the chat to ask a question that I'll get to at the end of the presentation. The handout is out on the PC Club website and the past meetings page. Also, Paula will be sticking it in the chat maybe in another 5 minutes or so. So let's get started. First, we'll cover a little club status, and then we'll get to our main topic. We did have just a recap. We did have our annual meeting or celebration July 17th, and thanks to Paula and Linda who got the prizes, and Jim and the rest of the board for getting stuff. And also thanks to John and Al who took pictures during the meeting. So we have photos. You can go out to the website and view the photos. And this is just a collage of some of the stuff. Beautiful day. Paula picked a perfect day, and everything worked out good there. So that was real good. Future meetings. Our next question and answer, online question and answer session is September 10th at 11:30. And then we have September 18th is our next general meeting. That will be on identity theft in the dark web. We'll talk a little bit about identity theft, dark web, tips to protect yourself. If you haven't heard about the major breach that just has come out in the last week or so, it's a little timely because what do they have? Close to 3 billion records, including your social security number, past addresses, phone numbers. So almost everybody's affected.
You didn't say who had the breach. Was it like the social, like the IRS?
It's a data aggregator. You wouldn't know the name. They sell the data to the credit bureaus and to companies like 3M and things like that. But unfortunately, it exposed a ton of information. And if you haven't done things to protect yourself, you better start freezing your credit and doing some other things, or freezing your from the 3 credit bureaus and that. But we'll talk more about that in September. The next MaxSig is September 20th. Officers, Jim is our president, Linda is our vice president, Paul is our membership secretary, Paula is our treasurer, Chuck is our recording secretary, Mike runs the MaxSig, Andrew is our communication coordinator, I'm a director at large, Tom. And members old and new, you can pay your dues to Paul, and he'll send out when your membership becomes due. So not everybody, it's not like January 1st to December. It's whenever you join the club. Just a reminder, if you are changing your email, make sure and notify us, because that's the way we keep in touch. You can email ideas for topics to any of the board members. You can talk to any of the board members. We're always looking for people to volunteer to present on hardware or software that they use. Could be something at home, could be something at work. And then we do have our monthly e-bytes newsletter. So if you want to write a sentence or a couple of pages on a new gadget or new software that you're using, or a website that you like, we'd love to include it in the e-bytes newsletter. Website, we do capture the slides and handouts. So this is currently being recorded and will be put out there. And if you missed it or want to review any past meeting, you can go out there and watch it and get the handouts. We also have our deals section, our monthly newsletter, and this is the link. And the link is also sent on all the emails that we send out. Okay, let's get to our main topic, which is Windows 10, 11, and 12 by myself, Tom Kreuzer. Hard to believe, but it's almost 40 years since the first version of Windows was introduced in 1985. That was version 1. I could ask people around here, did anyone use version 1 of Windows in 1985? Okay. And I did a little bit there, but at that time we had DOS, and DOS continued to be used by people, and including 3M, a number of people within 3M, until 1994, I think, is when IBM and Microsoft stopped updating DOS. It stopped at 3.4. But since that time, version 1, we've had version 3.1, 95, XP, Windows Vista, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, 11, and Windows 12 Common. This is just a little FYI. Also in 1985, we did have Bill Gates presented Microsoft Word for DOS at a PC Club meeting. So that's our little brush with the greatness there at the meeting. But he wasn't even talking about Windows because there was no Word for Windows at that time. There was only Word for DOS. And this is what the first version of Windows looked like if you've never seen it. Was basically for starting up multiple applications and then almost like an Alt-Tab kind of a thing to switch between them. So it wasn't real elaborate, and that's because there was limited memory and the limited CPU and everything on the machines. Okay, let's talk now about Windows 10, 11, and 12. Microsoft is being more closed-mouthed than usual about its plans for Windows. So a year ago, they were talking about Windows 12 all the time and it coming out this year and stuff like that. Well, all of a sudden they changed direction. They've been really closed-mouthed there. The rumor mill has been working overtime since the end of 2023. Helped along by some leaks from partners that suggested we would indeed get another Big Bang release in 2024, which is roughly 3 years after Windows 11 was announced. But we'll talk about Windows 12 a little bit later. First, we'll start out with Windows 10. How many people are still running Windows 10? So we've got, and I've got it on, I've got multiple machines, so I have this laptop actually is running Windows 10. Can't be updated to Windows 11, so it'll continue to run Windows 10 until I shut it down next year. But it is going to expire. Windows 10 will expire in 2025. Windows 10 came out in July of 2015, so it will have had a run of 10 years. So that's a long time for an operating system. The unfortunate part about this operating system is in the past, most of the versions of Windows could be upgraded to the new version, a newer version of Windows. The Windows 10, there's over 400 plus million PCs that won't be able to be upgraded to Windows 11. So my laptop here is unable to be updated to Windows 11 there. And as such, as you'll see I talk later, you shouldn't be using a machine if it's not getting updated. Microsoft will no longer provide free support and security fixes after October of 2025. This is where I mentioned you should never run a PC, or for that matter any device, your phone, a Macintosh, doesn't matter what version it is or what company it is. If it's not getting updated with security patches, you are vulnerable to being hacked, and I'd almost guarantee that you will be hacked because there's no such thing as a perfect operating system. And I've known people that have had old iPhone 5s and they're still using their iPhone 5 and they go, well, everything's still working. And I go, yeah, if you want to get hacked, that's good to use that iPhone 5. But that iPhone 5 is no longer being updated by Apple. So when vulnerabilities are found by hackers, you're going to get, it's not if you're going to get hacked, it's just a matter of when you're going to get hacked. And this is where I say here, update your Windows 10 PC to Windows 11 if you can right now today. So if your machine can be updated, you should do it. Now, unfortunately, well, we'll talk about some of the requirements there. Windows 11 does require what's called a Trusted Platform Module, TPM. It's a hardware chip that's built into the hardware of the machine. It also requires a newer CPU and a little more memory than some of the past versions of Windows, which basically means that if your machine is older than 2019, it doesn't have this TPM hardware chip. It doesn't have a newer CPU. So that will not be able to be upgraded to Windows 11. If you can update, be sure to back up your data locally or in cloud storage before you go through the process of updating. And again, if you can update your Windows 10 machine, I'd highly recommend that you update it now. There are, we'll talk about 6 options if your PC cannot be upgraded to Windows 11. So there are some options that you can do with your laptop or desktop if it can't be. One option is to install a free Linux operating system. Today, anyone can install and run a Linux which can look and act very much like Windows. In fact, I've installed it on several laptops used at my dad's senior living facility. So they had old laptops, they weren't running well, couldn't be upgraded to Windows 10, and at that time I put a Linux operating system on there and they run fine. The software that's specifically written only for Windows will not run in Linux. But most people are using stuff from the browser, whether it's getting at their mail, searching, watching YouTube videos, and things like that. All that'll run fine in Linux. And even if you have packages like TurboTax, TurboTax has a website that you can go out to. Well, Linux can get to any website, so if you can get to a website, you can run the software. This converted PC, in some cases, let's say you convert a laptop to Linux, you don't have to use that as your primary machine. You may want to just use it as a backup or a spare or a hobby computer that you have. So rather than recycle it or give it away or something like that, you certainly could consider updating it to the Linux operating system. Similar to the Linux operating system, a second option is the Chrome operating system. So Chrome is another form of an operating system there. It's similar to Linux. You can install and run a Chrome Flex on any PC with a 64-bit processor, 4 gigabytes of RAM, 16 gigabytes of storage. In fact, you can, if you have a flash drive, you can boot from a USB flash drive. You can run essentially any Windows app similar to the Linux. You can run any, or you can't run Windows, or you can run Windows apps on a Chrome. Neither Linux nor Chrome will cost you a single dime. So none of them, you don't have to pay any money. There's no service. The updates are free, everything. All services and sites that can be run in a browser will run fine in the Chrome operating system. And the Chrome operating system, if you have any type of Android device, whether it's a tablet or a phone, that's running the Chrome operating system, is what you have there. A third option is you could hack your way into installing Windows 11 on an old PC. If you've been online or through some of the bulletin boards, you may have seen tips on how to install Windows 11 on any machine, even the ones that Microsoft says can't be updated. Well, while that can be true, Microsoft won't support you if you try that hack to install Windows 11. Also, you're just setting yourself up for issues down the road because every time there's an update to Windows 11, the hack that you may have made to try and get Windows 11 to work on that may cause the upgrade to fail and have all kinds of problems. So it's really not an option that I'd recommend anyone do there. It's just not worth the time and the trouble. The fourth option, Microsoft is willing to sell you extended security updates. So they will continue to these patches so that you don't get hacked. And that's mainly for companies. Companies will do it. So as an example, let's say the St. Paul school system doesn't want to go through and upgrade. They have no money, or they claim they have no money, and they have no expertise on updating. So they'll sign up with Microsoft. Microsoft hasn't announced how much it'll cost individual users, but businesses can pay $61 per device per year for Microsoft to continue to patch and patch these security vulnerabilities there. There's also other companies out there. One's called Zero Patch, which offers customized patches for out-of-service operating system. It's expected that the company will offer support for Windows 10 for maybe about $25 a year. I don't recommend you even go down that path or consider it. It's, again, not worth it there. Fifth option is to continue running Windows 10, and unfortunately that's what a lot of people end up doing. They've done it with Windows 7 and they've done it with Windows 8 when it became obsolete. This is if you have a death wish and want to get hacked. Go for it. Go for it. See how long it is before you have some problems there. But you will have problems. Sixth option is to buy a new PC that runs Windows 11. Now, if you're going to be buying a new PC now, you'll see a lot of PCs out there, especially some refurbished or older models there, for very low prices, $100 or less for a high-powered machine. Unfortunately, these are machines that cannot be updated. They come with Windows 10 on there, and they can't be updated to Windows 11. So you're buying the use of that laptop or desktop essentially for less than a year. And I don't recommend buying a PC that does not have Windows 11 on it or can't be upgraded to Windows 11. And so I'd gotten, this is an example, a new PC with Windows 10 from Newegg, and you see it on the valid sites. You'll see it. Best Buy is still selling Windows 10 machines in their store. You can walk in and buy a Windows 10 machine, and okay, it'll work fine for a year there, but Newegg was selling it for $133. It was a refurbished HP 800 G3 Mini containing a i5, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and 1 terabyte hard drive. Now, having said that, don't buy a Windows 10 machine now. If you're buy a Windows 11, you can get some great deals. This is an example of a great buy on a Windows 11 Pro version for under $150. It has its limits, but it is what a price. Let's see if we can pull up some of the specs. This is an article that's a little bit old, but they still have equivalent models out there. This is a model that was sold. Let me get rid of that. So this is a mini PC packed with ports and power that you can get for under $150. It's a hockey puck. They call it a hockey puck, but because it's not much bigger than a hockey puck. You can. It's made to screw in and clip on to the back of a display, or you can put it almost anywhere. So it doesn't require a lot of desktop space. Doesn't have a fan. So they are rather small there. Let's look at some of the specs of this. This is a 12th generation Intel CPU, 16 gigabytes of RAM, 512 SSD hard drive, supports 2 4K monitors, so you can have 2 monitors with this thing. You have 3 USB 3 ports, 3 HDMI, 2 an Ethernet port, low noise. This is what it looks like on the back. Certainly there's lots of connections in this little thing to connect to, but it's an example of if you're replacing an old Windows 10 the desktop or that, excellent example there. And laptops, laptops typically you're going to pay more because you have to buy, in a laptop you're getting the display in addition to the CPU. So laptops, the Windows 11 laptops start at about $300 to $350. You can get a laptop for a Windows 11 laptop. And this example here is out on Amazon. And there's multiple vendors that sell these. These aren't like an IBM compatible. I mean, it's not made by IBM. It's not made by HP. They're I forgot the Blackview. This is Blackview MP80. But there's a number of vendors that make these hockey puck PCs there. Okay, so that's Windows 10. The takeaway from that is if you do have a Windows 10 machine that can be upgraded to Windows 11, upgrade it. If it can't be upgraded, you should be looking at buying a new PC. You do have a little bit of time. I wouldn't suggest waiting until October of next year because I would guess that there are going to be hundreds of millions of people looking to buy computers in October of next year. So if you wait, the price is going to go up because there's going to be a shortage of Windows 11 computers. That's why you can get great deals now on Windows 11 computers. Waiting a year from now, I can guarantee you're going to have to pay maybe 2 to 3 times as much money. Okay, Windows 11. Windows 11 came out in October 2021. It seems like it just came out yesterday, but 3 years ago. Here I mention again, upgrade from Windows 10 to Windows 11 now if you can. Some of the changes in Windows 11, if you, how many people, at least in the room here, haven't or don't use Windows 11 at this time, haven't upgraded to Windows 11 or don't have a Windows 11 machine? Okay, so not too many there. It's certainly not that much different than Windows 10, but there are some differences. By default, they center the taskbar and the start menu, and they move a few things around. They wanted to make it look more like the Mac operating system and the Chrome operating system. You can go into the settings and move things around, and the windows come with rounded corners. They aren't square. There's new app icons, and there's new fluent emojis that are supported. The start menu at the bottom of the screen is a little more, is a bit more simplistic. You only see a static list of apps followed by the most frequent documents at the bottom. They started out with live tiles and people were confused with those, so live tiles are gone, which makes the start menu look a little bit cleaner. The taskbar is collapsed and the search box into an icon. And also remove the Cortana. Cortana was the voice recognition that you could, like Alexa or that, you could wake it up and you could ask it questions. The other big changes also involve moving the weather and the taskbar to the left side of the screen. Windows 11 introduced virtual desktops as well, which allow you to maintain separate desktop workspaces for gaming, work, whatever you have, and especially if you've got multiple monitors, it's a way of grouping and putting things so that you're efficiently using the space that you have on your monitors. Windows 11 is better for gaming. It features some enhancements for auto HDR and direct storage. There's multitasking improvements in system performance with snap layouts at group windows and save them to the taskbar. So if I'm working on something, let's say I'm working on when I create this handout. This is in a word processor. And then once I'm done with this and kind of have it finalized, then I start creating my presentation. Well, I can use the snap layouts to just, if you drag up to the top, half a screen here, drag this other up, and it automatically sizes each to half the screen. And then I can have both of them up, and I can be cutting and pasting and moving stuff around between the two. Multi-monitor setup is much improved. You have built-in, since the AI revolution that's happened in the last year, you have a lot of built-in capabilities in Windows 11 with Copilot, combining some of the smart chat GPT stuff and Bing web scraping for up-to-the-minute results there. Paint also includes an AI image generation. Microsoft is about to make a significant change in how it delivers security updates and feature updates for Windows 11. You can still expect to see a single update package on the second Tuesday of each month, aka Patch Tuesday it's called, but instead of a single update file that grows larger each month, Microsoft is introducing what it calls checkpoint cumulative updates. This new system won't be publicly available until the end of the year in Windows 11, but it should make some of the updates, well, it will make the updates much faster to install and things like that than they are today. Okay, so that's Windows 11. Now let's talk about Windows 12, or what was going to be called Windows 12. The next major update to Windows won't be called Windows 12 after all. It was supposed to be called Windows 12, and it was supposed to come out right along this time. That's why I scheduled this meeting to kind of do stuff. And Microsoft backed off of releasing Windows 12, and now they're just calling it Windows 11 24H2 for the second half of 2024. So all the changes that they were going to make and call it Windows 12 are bundled into an update for Windows 11. It'll show up this fall, probably in October, and it'll be based on a new platform codename Germanium. Since Microsoft has announced that it has moved the annual feature update cadence for its operating system, the next logical time for Windows 12 to arrive will be around October of 2025. So there will be a Windows 12. It's just instead of this year, they'll probably release it next year, and it'll correspond with the end of life for Windows 10. So they'll kind of combine the two together there. Microsoft is focusing on its Copilot generative AI features, and you may have even heard of its partnership with a number of hardware vendors to create what are called Copilot Plus PCs. So those do require the newer version of the operating system with kind of this built-in AI stuff. This includes both ARM-based PCs, like those supporting the Snapdragon X Elite processor. And I'm sure most of you maybe haven't heard some of these names before, and don't worry about the names, but it's a change from Intel and some of the other producers of chips that we've had in the past. So the Snapdragon we'll talk a little bit about it, or I mention a few things about it, comparing it to what you see in the Apple Mac series of M1, M2, M3, M4 chips. This is an example of putting literally billions of these transistors on these CPUs and building AI capabilities into the CPU itself. And so these CPUs come with these neural processing units, or NPUs, to power all these new AI features. Windows 24H2, again due probably in October, will be chock full of AI features. The Copilot feature is readily available as a preview in Windows 11. New PCs designed for Windows 11 will include hardware features, including custom neural processing units that are optimized for AI features. While there may be some new hardware requirements for some of these AI-specific features for the speech and image processing, for example, you won't see the limitation like we had going from Windows 10 to Windows 11. So if you have a Windows 11 PC that's not AI ready, it's still going to be able to run the new version of Windows 12. It just won't be able to take advantage of some of the AI features unless you have hardware that is relatively new, meaning it came out right now or within the next year there. The Nuvia acquisition delivers the Qualcomm CPU that should improve or will improve performance and battery life that are close to Apple's devices and could pass the good enough test, especially at the lower price point. The company says the new chip can match in performance Intel's fastest CPU while using 70% less power. So what that means is certainly for laptops and that, your battery life, when you are running the new version and the new chips on it, are going to last days instead of hours or that you used to have. So they're working on ARM, and some of these things are still in the works, but they should be ready in 2025. Don't expect to see any major user experience changes, meaning start menus or things like that, except to move the taskbar to the top or the side of the primary display. Some Windows watchers have speculated that they may be adding a floating search bar and move some elements to the taskbar, making Windows experience more Mac-like. One of the core selling points of Windows through the years has been its focus on backward compatibility with apps and service. They may clamp down on older apps with security threats that haven't been rewritten for the new operating system, so they're less vulnerable to track attacks and run them. So it may separate them out, and they may not run as well on some of the new operating system, but you're still going to be able to run virtually all the old software that used to run too. Microsoft has officially killed off the Windows subsystem for Android apps. If you remember when we first were talking about Windows 11, one of the big features was the ability to run Android apps in Windows, access to hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Android apps being able to be run inside the Windows. That never really did pan out that well. People weren't excited about doing it. You had a number of Android apps that could be run, but the vendors, because a number of people weren't installing it, weren't moving to Windows 11, they essentially have kind of killed that portion of running Android apps in Windows 11. Historically, most people buy Windows on a new PC and never pay Microsoft directly. Don't expect that fact to change. So when you buy a new computer, you get a new version of the operating system, or when you go from Windows 10 to 11 or from 7 to 10, there was no cost. There was no upgrade or that. And it's not expected that Microsoft will change the prices or the economy there. There is a small chance, though, that Microsoft may require a subscription for the operating system in the future if you want to take advantage of some of the advanced artificial intelligence features. So perhaps the PC prices might be a little bit lower, and if you don't buy into some of this stuff, you may have an ad-supported version where ads are popping up. So that's kind of the update on the 10, 11, and 12. We'll generally talk about some things here. This is something that I get questions on occasionally. When buying a new computer, people will buy a computer and it'll say it comes standard with Windows 10S or even Windows 11S. And the S is a streamline, it stands for streamlined version of Windows. And it's activated to give better security and performance on low-end computers. Unfortunately, the S limits the computer to only apps from the Microsoft Store are allowed, no other software. So you couldn't load TurboTax software. You couldn't load any other software other than if it came from the Microsoft Store. You are required to use Microsoft Edge as your browser. Access to the command line is restricted. So S mode is not for everybody. In fact, there's very few people that I'd actually recommend buying a machine and running it in S mode. Some external hardware like printers may require special software that's not available in the Microsoft Store, making the hardware unusable while you're in S mode. Fortunately, if you do buy a computer in S mode, you can switch out of S mode back to the regular Windows. But switching out of S mode is a one-way process. It can't be reversed. It's free to do. You can check if your PC is using S mode by going into the Windows settings and the About and see what you're running there. And when you buy a computer, that's where that example that we saw, well, that was running Windows 11 Pro. So there's Windows 11 Pro, there's Windows 11 Home or regular version, and then there's Windows 11S for this streamlined version. And some of the machines will come with S just because at the store, people will see, gee, this is going really fast and everything runs good and stuff like that. That's because it's a stripped down version there. And it's usually only on PCs with limited RAM of 4 gigabytes or even 8 gigabytes and a slow CPU. Okay, this is another little bit of information. I'll get questions from people on updates, Windows updates. To check if you have any updates that are pending for your computer, you can always at any time go into the Windows settings and go to Windows Update. And when you go there, you're going to see various updates. Now, you may not have any updates if your machine is totally up to date, but you'll see different types of updates out there. And one of the types of updates is what's called a monthly security update. This is a cumulative update that includes security and non-security content. Usually comes out the second Tuesday of each month at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. These are updates that you should update as soon as possible because it's security patches that are fixed. These patches, depending on the speed of your computer, your internet connection, things like that, can usually take anywhere between 5 minutes and 60 minutes. Another type of update is what's called an optional preview release. These are kind of the beta updates. You don't have to install them. They're just out there if you do want to try something out. Those usually come out the fourth Tuesday of each month at 10 a.m. I don't recommend them anyone installing them. I don't install them myself unless you're having a particular problem with a piece of hardware or software that isn't working right in Windows 10 or Windows 11. Then you may want to try this preview release. Another type of release is called the critical security update. This is when it's identified that there's a security problem in Windows and it resolves an identified issue or vulnerability. Those can come out you may have one at 10 o'clock in the morning here and one at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and one at 2 a.m. Tomorrow morning. Those can come out at any time, and you want to make sure those are getting updated on your computer as soon as possible. and those usually only take a couple of minutes, and usually your machine doesn't have to be rebooted. This last one is called an annual feature update. That's what that version that was going to be called Windows 12 is the annual feature update. Update changes the version number. So the next one that we'll see is Windows 24, meaning 2024. H2 is the second half that was released. These are usually done once a year in the fall and take 20 to 120 minutes to install. Install when you have time to get the new features and functions. There are other updates that take place in the Windows updates. Some of them are antivirus definitions, drivers, BIOS updates, Microsoft Office updates. So there are a variety of other updates that the Windows update is also doing. But the ones that we talked about were updates specifically to Windows. Okay, that concludes there. We'll open it up for questions. Okay, let me first. One second. Let me first change my. I'm going to stop sharing here and turn on. Okay, where am I here? Okay. Question?
Windows Defender, which comes on machines versus buying software. And I know you talked about antivirus before. Your thoughts on, do you need a third-party package?
Yeah, the question, and I'll repeat it for the people online, as the question was Windows Defender, antivirus, or their firewall, and it's a combination of programs in that. And there, do you need a third-party package at all? And I used to say, well, if you had Xfinity or you had CenturyLink, they had either Norton or McAfee. You can install for free, and I'd say install that. You don't have to pay money for a third-party package. But over the years, Microsoft Defender and the Microsoft antivirus and firewall have all gotten better to the point where PC Magazine and ZDNet and a number of them will recommend that's adequate to use. You don't have to put in either a Norton or a McAfee or some of the free versions, the AVG, or you don't have to put in some of those. Now, having said that, there are certain features and functions in some of these packages that will go beyond what the Microsoft suite does. So there's all different points that these antivirus programs can attempt to protect you, whether it's looking for incorrectly typed URLs. So some people still like to have the packages. Personally, myself on my machines, I've just gone back to the Windows. I had been using McAfee. I have CenturyLink, and that was free. However, I just saw CenturyLink has disconnected itself from McAfee. I think at the end of the year, you no longer can get the free McAfee from them anymore. But one of the other reasons that I switched to the Microsoft is the way that CenturyLink was managing that McAfee. So if you had the McAfee, it had an expiration date on there, and you'd occasionally see a pop-up that would pop up on your screen that McAfee's about to expire, which is true. CenturyLink didn't give you an unlimited deal, and automatically before that expiration date, CenturyLink would update it, and it wouldn't be there. But that particular pop-up, along with potentially emails that you might get, were exactly what hackers would do. and so it kind of ticked me off that I had to be very cautious or read into what was there. Uh, since I went to the Microsoft Defender and the Microsoft Suite, I no longer have to be concerned with any of the emails or any potential pop-up that says your Norton's going to expire. I don't have Norton. I don't have McAfee. I don't, so a lot of the hackers and pop-ups and things like that no longer pertain. So you'll get adequate protection, I guess. The short answer is there's adequate protection there. But if there's certain features or functions that you want, it's worth looking at potentially some of these others. One last comment on that, I just popped into my head, is malware is a little bit different. So you have antivirus and then you have malware. Malware is software that can attach onto your computer and watch your keystrokes and capture some things. And there's, while hackers may not use it, it's used to capture information about you. Malware, Microsoft doesn't have a good malware capability built in there. But I've mentioned before, you can download malware bytes for free, scan your computer. I don't recommend that you leave it up and running all the time. You don't need it running all the time. Scan your computer, and most of the time you're going to get a report back that says no malware found, nothing on there. And then uninstall it as soon as I'm done. That way it's not using CPU cycles, it's not slowing down the machine and things like that. So that package along with the Microsoft updates should be sufficient there. Okay?
What was that called again, Tom? Excuse me.
Sure.
Malware bytes? What's it called?
Malware bytes.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, and malware bytes, even if you have a Mac, I think they make a Mac version also. But it's free to download. It's free to run. When it runs, it'll install itself into your operating system. So I don't recommend that you don't have to run it all the time, but it's a good scanner if you think that you might have something or that, or if you just want to get into a schedule of every 6 months scanning the machine or something like that. It can be helpful. Okay? Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Tom.
One of them was when you're using Microsoft Edge browser, so that has adequate protection.
The question was, if you're using the Microsoft Edge browser, does that have adequate protection? Well, all of the browsers, you have a combination of your antivirus software running in the background. Some of that is monitoring every website that you go out to. Every time that you attempt to download a file, it's scanning the file, making sure that it doesn't include known viruses. So that'll happen with any package. The Edge browser, we talked a little bit about that over the last years. Microsoft browser used to be called Explorer. Explorer was retired, completely gotten rid of. Now you do have the Microsoft Edge browser. It starts from the same code as Chrome. So it's built from the same Chrome code, the public domain code there. It supports the same extensions. So I may have mentioned extensions. You can see here, well, the people online can't see, but I have an extension for Bitwarden, my password manager. I have an extension here for AdBlock Plus. You can install extensions. These same extensions would also install on Microsoft Edge. So Edge and Chrome are, some people now prefer to use Microsoft Edge over Chrome because it's faster than Chrome. Because Chrome carries years of baggage and changes that have been made. Microsoft Edge was essentially built from the bottom up using this common source code, but on head-to-head performance, the Edge uses less memory and is faster on a computer than Chrome. I still use a combination of both. Most of the time I use Chrome. If something doesn't look good in Chrome or I want to try something else, then I'll switch over to the Edge and use that.
Isn't it more about the quality of results, not of milliseconds?
The question was, isn't it a question of quality of results? Well, actually, the browser doesn't have anything to do with your result. If you were going out to do a search, then the question is, if you're using the Microsoft Edge browser, I can still go to Google and do a search, or I can use the Microsoft Bing search. Well, I can use the Microsoft Bing search in Chrome, or I can use Google, or I can use there's hundreds of searches that I could use. So that usually doesn't figure into it. What figures into it is the underlying code that is run, and it's ironic that Chrome gets beat in speed tests, where that used to be its selling point, is we were so much faster than Microsoft Explorer because of all the old code and the old baggage. Well, now Chrome's the old browser with the baggage and the old features and things like that, and Edge doesn't have that. Okay? Question online or? Let's look in the, I didn't look in the chats there. Let me look in the chats here.
That's just uploading the.
Yeah. Are the instructions to install the new Linux in lieu of Windows 10 in any of the newsletters? Yeah, if you look at some of the past newsletters, I put articles out there on how to change your machine, and what there is in both the Linux and Chrome is there are multiple versions. So one will look one way and one will look another. Like these Linux, they call them distros, for distributions of the operating system. There's probably about 10 or 20 different versions that you could put in. They're all built on the same code base, but then they have a different user interface and how they work. But they've been listed in past e-bytes, and I tend to put them out there. And there's a few people in the club, like myself, who I have a couple of machines that are running Linux there. And if you've got an old machine, an old laptop, there's instructions on how to download it, put it on a flash drive, use that flash drive to boot your laptop, reformat the hard drive, and put this on. And I just got a look from Paula here, if you're not in the room there. Paula was this,
Everything sounded okay until you said reformat the hard drive.
It is reformat the hard drive because it literally is a one-way conversion. So once you make the decision to go to from Windows 10 or Windows 7 or 8 to Linux, it's a one-way, and that's why I say it can be a great backup computer or a second computer. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for the main computer for somebody, because if you're used to Windows, you're probably best staying with Windows. And because you can get, for $150, you can get a low-end Windows 11, the hassle or the time to learn some of these commands and things like that in Linux may not be worth your time there. Yeah, let's look at another question in the chat. Is Microsoft Edge downloadable to a thumb drive to be able to install it on an old computer that only had Internet Explorer? Same question for Google or Google Chrome. Yeah, the problem that you run into, whether it's Microsoft Edge or Google or that, they're written for an operating system, and so you can't just say, I'm going to use Edge on Windows 7. Edge is counting on a Windows operating system being at a certain level, and so it doesn't work that way. Now, having said that, in some cases, you might be able to find a download for an old version of Chrome for an old version of Windows. Again, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that because if Edge will run on Windows 10, Edge will run on Windows 11. You shouldn't be using a computer with Windows 7 or Windows 8. So, bottom line is, get new hardware and install a new operating system there. How to determine if Windows 10 machines can be updated to Windows 11. I talked about going into the Windows setup and clicking on the Windows update. If you click on that screen, you will see a screen that'll tell you if your machine can be updated from Windows 10 to Windows 11. So just go in there. You may have seen a bunch of notifications over the last years, but to immediately check it, just go into the Windows settings and then go to Windows Update, and it'll tell you if your machine can be updated or not. And Windows 12, since it isn't out yet, the speculation is that it certainly won't. Most of the machines should have no problem with it. If your machine doesn't have the newer AI chips, then those types of features aren't going to run on it. But in general, when Windows 12 comes out, you should be okay there.
I think that question is related to instead of going from a 10 to an 11 by October of next year, you just wait until the 12 or the 11 second half.
Okay.
Computers do come out.
Yeah, okay, excuse me. Yeah, Steve, I guess I didn't read the whole thing there. Can skipping the 11, I would not recommend that. It's unclear whether Microsoft will support that. That's why I say right now today, if your machine can be updated to Windows 11, you should update to Windows 11. There's too many features and functions in Windows 11 to not take advantage of it. There's no cost to upgrade to it. It's got increased performance. So there really is, some people will say, well, I don't want to upgrade to a new version of Windows because it may be unstable. Well, this is an operating system that has been out for 3 years, and so it's Windows 11 is more stable than Windows 10 at this point.
If you have a Windows 10 only machine, you can wait until like the 12 machines come out, or 5, 8, 11.
You can buy an 11 machine today. If you wait until the 12 machines come out, that if they hold to their schedule, it'll probably be October of next year for Windows 12. If you wait that long, and if you've ever been involved in some of these other jumps of new versions of Windows, you'll find that the shortage of machines out there drives up the price. Because what happens is, let's say we're next year there, we're getting close to it, all of a sudden all the schools are updating and buying all the hardware from the vendors there so that the prices get supply and demand, they get jacked up there, and you'll find shortages, especially on cheaper machines. If you were looking at a high-end machine, then I wouldn't worry about it too much. But if you're looking at a lower-end laptop or a lower-end desktop, like that $150 hockey puck desktop there, you aren't going to see that price next year. That won't be around. I guarantee that. Because, again, it's supply and demand, and there's going to be a lot of demand because you're going to see... you're going to be seeing prompts on your screen and prompts in the news talking about Windows going away and there being a lot of people running old versions of Windows there.
Yeah, so you will help. I think Steve was just thinking that if he buys a machine that has the upgraded hardware,
Yeah, the upgraded hardware, if you're gonna, yeah, and if you're looking at a low-end machine, again, the low-end machine, if you bought, these Copilot Plus PCs today are going to be 2 to 3 times as powerful next year, and that's because the chip makers are putting more processing units on there, more caches, more storage, more features and functions built in there. So stuff is going to improve, and I talked a little bit about it before. People have no hesitation on buying a new phone every 2 years or 3 years. People have a hesitation about buying a new laptop or a new desktop, and frequently people are using their laptop and desktop more often and spending more time and that. So where should you be putting your money or your updates? Having multiple screens, if you have the space or the real estate, having faster CPUs, having a faster internet connection, all of these things can kind of play into, what you do. But with this electronics that we have today, it gets outdated, and the new features and functions are going to continue, especially with the AI requirements or AI capabilities. You may choose not to use any of it. You don't want to use Copilot to monitor everything that you're doing. By all means, turn it off. Or if your machine doesn't support it, good for you. But if you wanted to use it, because at any time you can ask it, what was I doing 2 days ago when I was updating this? And it'll tell you what you were doing. It'll take you out to the site, and it'll do that. Well, the reason it can do that is it is building up this history and log of everything that you've done. So indirectly, that AI is kind of mimicking your own mind. We do things, we accumulate that in our mind, and at some future point, we want to get back and we want to continue where we were and do things. It takes a lot of horsepower in that to do some of these things. Yep.
Real quick question. I have Norton, and the reason I have it is because I had LifeLock, and LifeLock, Norton bought LifeLock. Would you recommend that I divorce myself from Norton and just try to pay for the LifeLock separately?
It's up to you. The question was, he has Norton and he also has LifeLock, and obviously they're recommended and that. You don't need it, but some people just feel safer with it. So it's you can have that. Now, do you need a LifeLock? I'll be talking in September about that identity theft, and I'll be talking about some of the stuff there. So a lot of the stuff my account was involved in the Experian. If you remember the Experian debacle where they had the big, huge data breach, and you could get 3 years of monitoring there. So I said, well, yeah, I'll take that instead of $20. I think you could have got a $20 payout from the lawsuit or whatever. I took the monitoring. Personally, I found their monitoring to be awful. I get a monthly report and it says, "Oh, we found your email out on the dark web. We can't tell you where it was or what it was involved with, but it's out there." And I said, "Well, I've known that for years that it's out there, and 99% of the emails are out there, so you're not helping me one bit." it's not identifying that it was this breach and they also got this password or things like that. I have yet to see any detailed information from them like that. And the things that you can do to protect yourself from these identity thefts and data breaches are things that you can do for free yourself. You don't need to have a LifeLock. You can put the freeze on from the 3 credit bureaus. You can put monitoring on your banks and on your credit cards so that you get notifications when there's charges or new accounts set up or things like that.
I do like, though, when they send me a text that said, did you buy this? Or did you charge this? And it's like, yes.
Now, I get that from my banks and from my credit cards. So, I mean, I don't have to get that from LifeLock or any. That's where I say, if we all should be protected and we all should be monitoring. It's just a lot of this stuff you can either do yourself or there are websites and one of the websites when I talk about identity theft, especially with this current one, is you can go out there and you can see if your social security number is out there. And mine was out there. Almost everybody's is. And your old addresses. My address from when I was born was out there. My telephone numbers from when I was born were out there. So there's a ton of information. That's the reality we live in today. The question is, how do we protect ourselves from somebody using that information to open new credit cards, to attempt to log into site, to attempt to do nefarious things there? You can sign up. Yeah, the question was you're getting notifications from LifeLock on.
No.
Unless you give them, it's a account that's not frozen, right? They're doing like holes.
Well, this is similar to when you had Mint. Mint was doing a similar type of thing where if you signed up for Mint and you had it monitor, well, you could have notifications and emails come from it, but you're giving it permission to log into your accounts and.
Oh, so he's giving them access.
Yes.
Yeah,
Which
another person.
I'd personally I'd prefer to, I go to the credit card and I sign up for what their notifications are or what their.
The only thing is if you do have identity theft, they will say, "Well, we'll protect you up to $1 million." But your homeowner's insurance will do that too.
Right.
Oh, well.
We'll talk more about the identity theft and stuff like that because there's a lot of stuff involved there, and it certainly is very scary, especially with this latest data breach. It's also a case of how much are you really liable for? It can really screw up your life, but in most cases, unless you're into cryptocurrency or some of these other things, you're going to be able to clear up some of that. It may take you days, weeks, months, or a year to clean it up, but you can usually get money back and things fixed there. The healthcare billing, that unfortunately the number of breaches that are out there is just going up. I had my colonoscopy, and that little deal was breached there. But I mean, there's so many of the breaches, and so many of them I don't really care about. As an example, in that healthcare breach, the information that they was breached was name, email, phone number, and address. Well, I've kind of shown before, I won't show next week, but I can go out for anyone in this room and I can get all that information right now today. I'm not going out to the dark web. It's just free public information that's available out there. Now, you add Social Security in there, all of a sudden that's a bad, bad thing.
They did mention that.
Yeah, so some of the accounts, you're right, in the healthcare did have Social Security, but most of the stuff it wasn't the Social Security in there, but yeah. Yeah.
Like you, I have an old Windows 10 machine that I use occasionally, and if I want to get rid of that, what do I need to do to make sure that all the stuff that's on there is not available to whoever gets that machine or wherever I take to get rid of it?
Yeah, the question was if I've got an old machine and you want to get rid of it, recycle or stuff like that. There's a couple of things. There's things that you can do yourself, or if you know that it's going to a reputable recycler, the reputable recycler will have their procedures to erase everything or destroy everything. Now, we've talked before, well, maybe not, maybe we haven't talked before. I think it was the Apple SIG we talked on there about they had the reuse center at the University of Minnesota. You can donate your machines there. They reformat, they redo everything, and then they sell the machines and give them to people that need them there. Well, they have a whole process for cleaning it. So how much time and effort do you want to put in to clean it? It's up to you. Some people will say, and some sites will say, take a drill or a hammer and go through it and destroy it, completely destroy it. Well, then really the machine is not going to be recyclable anymore. They aren't going to be able to load a Linux or load a different operating system and do anything with it.
But there's no way to just wipe the hard drive.
Yes, there is, and there's packages to do it. The standard Windows delete or the Windows format is not meant to be a secure wipe everything. It cleans, it sets it up for a new install, but where those files were can be recovered. If you've probably heard of recovery programs to go out there, if you accidentally delete a file or a directory or that, you can recover it as long as you don't write stuff over the top of it right away. So there's recovery stuff that if you truly want it deleted, there are programs out there and they'll do multiple writes and completely write over things. They can take a day to run on a hard drive to scrub it.
But if you took, for example, an old computer Best Buy, did the Geek Squad say, I don't want this anymore, would they do that?
If it's going to a reputable recycling place, they'll do that. And they'll state on their website or their page exactly what their procedures are. If you're just giving it to somebody, then you run the risk of somebody saying, so you gave it to somebody and they'll go, oh, I know how to recover this PC. I know how to get this back. Let's see what logons they had. Let's see what data they had. Let's see what photos they might have had out there. So
This is easy.
Yeah.
You're not going to harm anybody, right? Pull the drive out.
Yep.
And then give them the box.
Well,
They can go find an SSD box.
if my husband would just listen to me, take out the hard drive, and I'll take it down to our safe deposit box, and we're not going to need that until after we're dead, and then it won't matter.
That's a good idea.
I mean, that's where the other hard drives are at, in the safe deposit box.
okay, I think we're going to have to wrap it up. Thanks, everybody, for online, and thanks for the people in person. And we'll see you next month or at the Q&A. Thanks. Bye. And thanks, Paula, for the cupcakes.
Cupcakes are delicious.
You're welcome.
Now we have to go on a diet.
Tom, if you have some reputable sites to that out or whatever, like the U of M.
Yeah, and even like in St. Paul, they have a recycling center, and you can take any laptop or desktop, and they have their procedure and that. It's mainly some of the smaller companies. So if you have within your area, there's a computer store down there, and you ask them, do you take old hardware? Most of them will take it. They may not have a procedure, so they may try and see what was out there.
I tried the CBL shredder. You talked about that before.
I haven't talked about that one, but certainly there are places